Why, hello.
Hey there. So I noticed this morning, because we're actually able to be outside today, that we are definitely getting to the end of the summer season. And the way I can tell that is because the morning glory that our old neighbor planted in their yard grows everywhere.
Yeah, you can't kill that stuff.
Yeah, it's underneath our current neighbor's entire driveway. It goes into our little aspen grove that we have. And now it's hit our garden.
Yeah, which I thought I somehow carried a seed or something with me,
No.
and you swear it's subterranean, which
It's subterranean.
I think might make sense. That's kind of the breed, the nature of that type of plant. Our old next door neighbor, she was a retired woman. She was kind of a botanist, specialized in gardening stuff. And actually, long ago, my sister and brother-in-law, prior to their marriage, put in a bid for the house next door to us when she put it on the market.
Yep.
But she selected another couple, and we're quite friends with them, so
Yes.
we don't bear a grudge at all. But we
No,
think that she
no.
actually may have favored their application because our neighbor is in like lawn care
Yes.
for a living professionally,
Yep.
and her yard was like her baby. But prior to her listing her house, that last year, it feels strategic to her selling her house that she did this. She planted morning glory along the side of her house. And ever since then, like the morning glory returns, and it slowly, within like maybe 2 years, made its way to the other side of the driveway. So underneath the
No,
concrete.
it was one season.
One season?
One
And,
season it was on that side.
and
And I
it's-
went, you got to be kidding me.
It's hard because you look at their driveway and it's like coming up in the cracks in the concrete.
Yeah.
And that means that eventually it's going to cause all the concrete to fail. And because it's going to get other plants in there, it's going to widen it.
Yeah,
And now it's way like, I don't know, 50 feet into our yard at this point.
I spray it at the beginning of the spring. If I find any, I kill it immediately.
I sprayed it too, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't help. It still keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, it's very pretty. It's a pretty little
sure.
flower.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
But
It's purple. It's nice. I figure next season it'll be in our next across the way neighbor on the other side, because it's made it midway through our yard, so it's probably going to be in their yard next year.
That'll be funny.
Yep.
If my other next door neighbor that I'm friends with suddenly has a bunch of morning glory along the fence and stuff. I mean, again, it is pretty. It grows everywhere, and where it really ought not to grow. And that's, the definition of a weed.
It would be fine. Like in other places, things are so verdant and they grow everywhere, so it wouldn't be that big a deal. But because we're talking about here in Colorado, it grows and everything else doesn't. So it's a weed, and we don't want it, because it kills off everything else.
So the other thing of this morning is our son is dressing himself for church. He's very dapper. He loves the bow tie, and he has the suspenders. He has a dress shirt on. And the first pair of pants he came out with were like sweatpants with Spider-Man up the leg, which was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But obviously, those are not dress pants.
Yeah. So
now he's made a change.
I told him to get jeans on. And Johnny, did you get jeans on? No, you didn't. You got shorts on. Get pants.
They're kind of jeans.
Well, that's because I made him into shorts yesterday, because they're holed and they're like one of his favorite pairs.
So he's wearing Hulk style cropped.
You need to go get jeans. Go.
I didn't want to make these.
Well, they were basically shorts already because they had so many holes in them. So I made them shorts.
You're like the Hulk, Jonathan.
You want to be the Hulk? Okay, we'll go inside. We'll deal with this later. Go.
So yeah, they're raggedy on the end because they were just chopped off. Did you even use my sewing scissors?
Yes, I did.
Okay, that makes a nice sharp cut at least on fabric.
That's why I did it.
But there's still like a lovely wavy line. Like,
Hey, I'm no seamstress.
I mean, it's just cutting straight.
Yeah, that's
It's
what
like
I thought I
preschool
did.
skills.
Yep.
But you see, it's like almost intentional waviness. Like it looks like it's intentionally meant to look like the Hulk's pants.
It was
Hulk's
called
pants.
Good Enough.
Oh, that's that morning. It's this morning that we're living in.
Yeah. Well, I'm Dale.
I'm Kit.
And welcome to Catholic Hitch. We are a Catholic family seeking heaven and hoping to pick up others along the way.
Small talk. What were we going to talk about?
you were wanting to talk about our new pastor, since you've gotten to meet him. I've gotten to meet him, but I haven't gotten to know him yet, and you've had a lot more FaceTime with him than I have.
Yes, although I wouldn't say that I've gotten to know him. I mean,
Well, not
takes
yet.
time.
Yes.
But yeah,
You've gotten to introduce yourself to him more than I have.
That's true. So we've gone through a transition at our church. Our former pastor, quite suddenly it feels, announced that he was going to be, or he had requested to leave our diocese to go to a different diocese.
Yes.
And that his request had been
Granted.
That's
Yes.
what you do to
And
requests.
the ripple that occurred.
Yeah.
Which I think we talked about.
No, you didn't. You talked
Not
about
on
it with
here?
me.
Okay.
So anyway, our pastor had been suffering chronic environmental allergies, and so he's departing Colorado for a new diocese, and he is leaving, or he left at a very different time of year than we normally rotate pastors. There was already the official pastor rotation. He is departing 3 years into a term, which is normally pastor terms are like 6-year terms. So he, is only in the halfway point, and because he left outside of the normal rotation, he also caused this ripple effect of other pastoral reassignments. Do you want to talk about that? It's kind of interesting.
Well, it was just the archbishop had to figure out, okay, what am I going to do with this? And the ripple effect was that some of the projects that we were working on changed around a little bit because those pastors are no longer there, and other projects that might be in the future just popped up.
I know, but could you talk about actually like who took what place? That's kind of interesting. Do you remember? That's the way you told
Vaguely,
it
I wrote
to
that
me.
down. So there were four or five different parishes that were affected by this. So one of them happens to be a college parish that's right off of was it the UNC?
No,
Or not UNC?
CSU.
CSU. See, this is why I wrote it all down.
Crime scene unit.
Okay, thanks. I'll probably never forget that now. The CSU campus, and it was a very big program. They had done a lot of work there, called Ram Catholic, and we'd been working with that pastor for quite some time on a project, or trying to get a project going, and he was requesting that, hey, could I, because his term was up, he was requesting that, hey, could I have a little bit more time here, because when you do campus ministry, it's not like you just jump into it. There's a lot of relationships that have to be made, both with the college and with benefactors that can help the ministry grow. So he was like kind of not ready to move out of that, but this kind of accelerated that for him. So he ended up going to I can't remember the name of the parish. Another decent sized parish, and the pastor of another parish that was like maybe had 20 people, 30 people. I don't know, maybe 100 families. Maybe it was an inner city ring parish, and he's a young priest. He was chosen to go pick up the position at Ram Catholic, and then our pastor now came from a parish up north in Steamboat.
West, I would say, more than north.
It's north to me. It's in a mountain, high,
But
up in the sky. That's north in my brain.
That isn't the way orthogonal.
I'm dyslexic. That's how things work in
So,
my brain.
from the west.
Yeah, from the west, this place that we're
We
in.
went west when we visited Steamboat last summer.
Sure. That's what you say. I went up a mountain.
Okay, we went up. We went up to
Yes.
Steamboat.
Up
Fair.
in Steamboat.
Yes.
That's where he came from.
Yeah.
And he was just finishing up a pretty large campaign, which I guess the next pastor that's taking over for him is going to do that. And apparently it sounded like there was a pastor that was okay with going up and doing the mountain kind of church thing, because it's a different dynamic.
Darn, I have to go live in Steamboat.
Well, I don't know.
Bike the mountains all the time.
Yeah, because
Give
that's
mass on the mountaintop.
That's
Ooh,
exactly what
so
they think
hard.
about. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the dynamics of a traveling parish. You don't have, you have some parishioners, but a lot of.
Darn, I have to be in my car by myself.
Wow. Okay,
I'm sorry,
we'll
but I
interview
don't.
them and
Yes,
see.
we could ask.
We'll interview and see
How
because
about
I
in a
don't think
year
it's
when
that
I
way.
know Father Ernest better, we can have him over for dinner and I'll like present. You know I will. I'll ask him this very directly.
Yes, you will.
I'll say my expectation of priests that get like assigned to a mountain community is like the jackpot. Is that the way it is?
I don't think it is. I think it's just
That's
a
what I'm going to
completely
ask him. I'm not asking
different
you.
dynamic.
You've
I
never
know.
been a priest in the mountains.
Yeah, but I've heard other priests talk about it. Anyways,
Maybe actually, so that's part of the game for priests in mountain communities. They can't like really articulate how like swell it is because then there'd be a target on their back. So they have to like really play up all of the worst parts of mountain ministry for others in order to try to like stay under the radar.
maybe that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I mean, he did tell us of his witness of becoming a pastor up there, and that was, I guess, his first pastor assignment, and he'd been there for 16 years.
Yeah, he was
But-
there for a way too long of a time almost.
Well, but
there was a particular reason, and that was a good reason.
yes, his family's up there, his parents are there, and he had asked for an extension because his parents are elderly. So it was a good reason. But in the end, I think, a ripple effect happened, and I don't know. I think it'll be for the better.
Yeah, I
Seems
wish I
like.
had prepared you because when you told me the whole breakdown of what like happened, it was really interesting.
Well, I don't know. I don't want to share too much of the dirty laundry of our diocese.
I don't think it's the dirty laundry.
To
I
me,
think,
it is.
No,
I mean, it's kind of like,
you're just
okay, this person moved here, and this person moved here, and this
yeah,
person
but you
moved
can
here.
get that like if I were to sit down at a computer, I could figure this out.
No,
because
actually,
everything's
it does,
on the
it is-
Archdiocese website.
You'd have
all
to
of the
know.
assignments.
You'd have to know which pastor went where.
Yeah, but okay. What I would rely on is the fact that the Archdiocese website is updated by a professional communications team,
Yes.
and church websites are not. Even our website, I think, still has our old pastor on it.
Yes, that's pretty
so
common.
it's pretty easy to try to do a Google search and look at the names. Like we would just have to start with the one church that we know had a pastor change, which is the one in Steamboat, and then start Googling, like look on the Archdiocese website, see what pastor's there now, Google, find that last pastor, figure out the church because they're
Yes.
still on that church website.
Yes.
Go back to the Archdiocese website, see where that pastor is now assigned, etc., etc.
Yes.
You see, I could do this. I don't think it's dirty laundry. I think it's fascinating as
Okay.
far as this is what happens if something in our highly bureaucratic church happens outside of the normal order of bureaucracy. Because our pastor suffered some environmental allergies and chronic
Well-
ailments because of that and needed to literally leave our area
I think
because he was allergic to us.
I think it points to the fact that because we don't have enough priests, there isn't a overrun. Isn't like you could say, oh well, we've got these 3 vicars over here. They're ready to be pastors. Let's just go ahead and shift those guys over into pastorship. That isn't the case. So because our previous pastor moved, it wasn't like you could just do that. He had our archbishop then had to make tough decisions and move pastors around within the diocese. And that was really what had to happen because there wasn't like
But that's, I don't
an
think,
overflow.
unique to our diocese. I don't think it's unique to America. It's probably not unique to the North American continent.
It's not unique to
It's
anywhere in our world,
probably-
honey.
It would probably not happen in Africa, because I think we get a lot of priests from Africa.
Yeah, but from the African priests that we have met, they're covering like 50 miles and like 10
well,
different
and that is
parishes.
more that relates. Sure. They have a different way of structuring, I think, their church there. That's
Maybe.
different than the American way.
Yeah,
And I think that
and
we
it's
maybe
not as
should
populated. Like
better pay attention to the African church and maybe get some pointers from them. Maybe we're too bureaucratic.
probably.
This
Big talk.
big talk.
So you read an interesting article.
I did, and I shared it with you. So there was a headline in our local NPR station, which is called Colorado Public Radio.
CPR.
CPR.
It does nothing like what the acronym is.
Yeah, I
Doesn't
mean,
resuscitate anything.
so I would say,
Sorry, that's just my angriness.
like every news
any
outlet
NPR.
that puts out like newsletter type content, they tend to get something catchy and grabby in the subject line. So the subject line was about mothers microdosing on psychedelic mushrooms to
Yeah.
cope with their life. Like mothers are microdosing. And that grabbed my attention. So it
Smidge.
did its job. And then I actually read the article and I shared it with you, and I thought that this might be a good topic to speak on.
I think it is.
So I want to quote one part of the article. And I have to say, my overall impression of this article is that it's essentially, it feels like it's advertising for a very burgeoning industry. Because although NPR-esque coverage purports to be unbiased, there's always a discernible bias because of the way that they frame different interviews. And I'd say, like, when you walk away from reading this article, although they do bring up kind of the voices maybe against the idea of microdosing and like the cautionary voices, for the most part, it's like, wow, these moms are like finding a way to cope with like the everyday struggles of motherhood. And so here's one part of the article. Moms are just struggling so hard right now, but many of us have moved past, I think, wanting to gather and just guzzle 5 bottles of wine and go bar hopping, she said. We're craving something deeper, and we're definitely craving community. Besides, with every day that passes, I can guzzle less and less alcohol in general. That's like, you know, one of the quotes toward the end of the article. And the entire overtone.
So they're a bunch of desperate housewives? I mean, that's
Well-
what that sounds like to me, because isn't that what they did on Desperate Housewives? It's just a bunch of, like, super problematic women who are drinking way too much alcohol and are isolated and alone.
Yes, which the premise of that show, and it's not a novel, I think, portrayal of modern motherhood and the cross that it is.
No.
And it isn't.
It's a secular portrayal.
Yes. So it's something that often pops up, that motherhood is hard, and, you know, we wind up with moms that are literally depressed and can't take it anymore. They have anxiety disorders, and they don't know how to cope with modern life. And why I pulled out that article is, when I'm reading this whole thing, I listen to Jennifer Fulwiler's stuff. She makes me laugh. And then I often really appreciate some of her perspectives, because I think she likes to be contrary and kind of think about issues that most people would just agree to, and she likes to kind of take the opposing view. And I appreciate that, and often I actually am won over by a lot of her arguments. So something that Jennifer Fulwiler often mentions is modern life, the way that we have constructed our worlds and our families, is so contrary to all of human history in the way that we structured
is.
life, because we are isolated as hell on this, in this United States of America.
Yes.
We have our isolated little kingdoms, our single family homes. We have our schedules and our jobs and this and like that really take a lot of time. And then we have societal expectations of what it means to be a quote unquote good mother. And that when you're trying to hit all the boxes, you literally can't, because we've constructed our lives in a very unnatural way, because we've taken out the advantage of having a society or a tribe around us to actually help support each other in our family experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first thing that I really saw shining through in this article was, oh my gosh, this is like the endemic, this is endemic to the way that we're structuring modern motherhood, that we're all so lonely. And the quote itself talks about women gathering together and drinking. And it's like drinking isn't, I think, all evil.
No.
But I think what is happening is like women just need to get together and alcohol's getting like blended into the mix, probably because we're so awkward being around each other that we don't know how to interact with each other socially anymore. And so that's like our little social grease is apply alcohol, and then we get the endorphins of actually being in community with each other.
Well, think about what's the sci-fi show we've been watching with Seth MacFarlane?
The Orville.
The Orville.
Yep.
So think there's always these little scenes of the women on the chief officers or whatever, the high level officers. They all come together and they all drink together, and that's their time together, and that's how they have community, is by getting drunk. I think it's a trope of our society today that, and it's not like a new trope. It's been around forever. But you have to have alcohol in order to do anything. That's what the secular world tells us. You have to. You have to have a drink, and you have to get drunk, and then you can share, and then you have a good time.
So you're saying like our social norms are forcing us toward drinking as like a first part of a process, like a multi-step process in order to socialize, that's what our social norms do?
Well, most of us, when we go off to college, that's what we do.
Okay.
We go, we find a group of people, and we drink copiously, and therefore we're happy together, and look at all the fun we get to have. When in reality, we don't really get to know each other. We're using each other through an alcohol.
And I would say alcohol has an effect of helping you to relax.
Oh, sure.
And it's effective in that way. And so when you are in social settings, I think it's a natural thing to use. Maybe it's overused, and maybe actually we've structured socialization to orient ourselves toward alcohol first. But I kind of am saying maybe, particularly in modern times, we're using it because we don't know what else to do when we get together, and we just want to get together.
Right.
And so the endorphins that we get of just being together are blended in with alcohol or with using something.
Yes.
And so this article kind of talked about the 1960s Valium mom, like using Valium to get through the day, and the 1990s Chardonnay mom using Chardonnay to get through the day, and that this has been happening for a very long time.
Right, which speaks to an endemic problem.
Yes.
Of isolation.
And that's what it is. You almost want to like put down this article and be like, these people need Jesus. But it's more than that, because like God made us to be with each other first, I think. He made us to be in community. That's why we have a church, and the church is a body of people. Yeah. And, where two or more are gathered, that is where Jesus is. It's not just where one person's hanging out chilling. So we are fighting a war against isolation, and we're masking all the symptoms. And now the latest way to mask symptoms is microdosing psychedelic mushrooms.
Pray that those moms don't have a bad trip.
Well,
for the children's sake, pray that they don't have a bad trip.
So this is another quote is, this is done between ballet practice and doctor's appointments and soccer. We don't get the luxury of just flying off to the Amazon rainforest for a month and doing ceremony after ceremony. We don't get to go to Bali for 2 weeks and do yoga and eat fruit. We don't even get 2.5 hours to meditate every day. That's not realistic for moms in this day and age. And I'd say, I wouldn't call attention to meditation as a solution for your like desperation.
Right.
Well, desperate loneliness. I would call attention to, you need to start looking for authentic friendship.
Well, they speak of meditation because that's religious, right? Meditation is spiritual and religious, and
it's spiritual, I would say.
Well, yes. I mean, Buddhism would be the great example of what people think meditation is.
Yeah, but there's mindfulness meditation that's very secular nowadays, so it's kind of the hip new thing to do.
Okay. Well, yeah, I would think that it's not. It's pointing to not the problem, the real problem. It's trying to say, oh, well, we can solve these things. We just need to do these things in order to do that. And I think it's wrong. I was listening to another podcast, just a guy in the pew, I think is the name of it, and he was also talking about this idea of community and how desperate.
Jonathan, no.
Not right now, son. Not right now.
No.
When we say no, it means no. Go inside, please.
All right, you were listening to a pod.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Excuse me while I take care of this.
So I guess I'll do my little talky talk spiel while you take a sun inside. Welcome to the professional podcast that we have, folks. But this is essentially supposed to be a slice of life podcast, so this is why we leave these moments of our life in with our, I think it would be sociopathic 4-year-old is accurate. Anyways, when I see, people are feeling lonely and sad and depressed, you often should start to ask what in my life is causing me to feel this way. And sometimes you actually need to go to therapy to deal with some actual stuff that's going on. And other times it might be that your life itself, the way that you've situated your entire life, is what's doing this to you. And if that's the case, you kind of start to wonder, the best cure for sadness is being around other people.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, then you might need to actually talk to a therapist because you might have trauma. But man, it's so much simpler.
Well, so they were pointing to on this podcast, talking about before the television came about. I mean, still being in suburbia, but that before television, before air conditioning, you came home at the end of the day, you didn't just stick around inside your house. You were outside on your front porch or your back porch, and nobody had privacy fences. And so you saw your neighbors, and because you saw them and people were outside trying to get cool, you had a community. You had a group of people that you had to interact with on a daily basis. And so you got to get to know them. And the moment that television and air conditioning and those kind of things started coming into modern day life, you went inside and you were no longer talking with those people because you were staring at a TV or you were, staying cool in your house. And I experienced that in college. My first dorm, we had no air conditioning, and you start the school year in August, September, and it was 95 degrees. So all of us have all of our doors open into the hallway, and as you walk by, you see what other people are doing. You're like, hey, what you doing there? Oh, hey, come on in. And we had a really good community of men on our dorm floor because we weren't stuck in our rooms as compared to some of my other friends or classmates, I guess I should say. When I go to their dorm rooms, everybody's door is closed and it's ice cold in the rooms, and they're all playing their video games by themselves. So they had no community whatsoever. They didn't even know who was on their floor.
So socialization was incidental or caused by the actual environment. So it wasn't that people went about socializing as the end goal. It was created by another situation.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do another one further, going back 100 or more years. Let's go to Julia Greeley's time in Denver.
Yep.
In that time, you were either an employer or you were employed. So even among different classes of people, you had socialization taking place and you had relationships developed, even if it's because you were paying someone to do your cooking or do your cleaning, or you're being paid, you're still coming into other people's lives. That's why Julia became a Catholic, is she was cooking for a Catholic family, and they witnessed to her in their life, or at least the mom did, that this was the truth, and she saw the truth shining through, and she wanted to be baptized. So we just were brought into contact with each other,
right.
And the artifice was the way that the economy worked. So we're in such a situation today. How do we socialize if we're not being forced to? And I don't know if people really know how to do it anymore.
Well, we do, but we do it through the internet,
which is not.
It's not the same.
Yeah, that's not an appropriate
You do it
substitute.
by going and playing Call of Duty. And you meet with perfect strangers you've never met before, and you have conversations. And they're artificial conversations in some way, but you share this game in order to do that. I think that's kind of where our communities have changed and more extremely, and I don't think it's the same. It's not a community, because those people go away and you don't meet with them necessarily again, or you never physically see them. and interact with them. You only know them through this artifice. So things have changed a lot, but
Yeah,
I
and
think
I
we're
don't
going to see
think-
our kids. That's how they're going to interact. I mean, that's like you look at our great grandparents and how they socialize versus our grandparents versus our parents versus us. It's a gradation of change in how communal aspects happen. And so I don't know, I'd say our parishes are like the one thing that's still consistent in some
The
respects.
nexus of socialization.
It kind of is, it's the one place where we all go because in many respects we have to go, right? We're required to go to church. And if you are living your Catholic faith, you want to go to church, you want to receive the Eucharist, and then there are benefits from that you interact with the same people again, and you have community, and you're in other people's lives.
Yeah. I mean, come to think of it, that's more where I'm most likely to see my friends anymore.
Right.
Is we'll run into each other at church in one way or another.
Yeah.
So it is a nexus of community where church's intention isn't community, but its byproduct is.
Right.
And that feels like probably the best way to get socialization in our lives is almost unintentional socialization. But how would you approach trying to do this intentionally? Like,
Well-
what do people need to do? What does a microdosing mom need to try to do?
So it comes down to fear in my mind. Most people are afraid to talk even to their neighbors. I mean, think about our little micro community here in our neighborhood. You had to reach out multiple times, and we invited people over, and then we started to get to know each other. With COVID, everybody was so tired of being in their house, we all started going out on our front porches, and then we started talking to one another. And that blossomed a mini community here with our neighbors.
Yeah.
So I would say to the microdosing moms or the Chardonnay moms or whatever, that if you want to not be alone, you have to take the step of not being afraid of communicating, talking with your neighbors, that they might just be okay. They're probably not axe murderers.
That's
in most
true.
instances. That's not the case. And yeah, they're probably not going to be one of them you're probably not going to get along with because you're totally different of opinion, or
they plant morning glory.
they plant morning glory and cut down your aspen trees when they feel like it. Yeah, there's probably going to be a few of those, but there's going to be a couple others that you probably can relate to pretty well, and you can get to know them. That's how you start community, right? You just have to start talking.
Yeah. And I have to always reflect on my own life whenever we talk about this stuff and think about what is the last intentional socialization that I did. And it's been a while, aside from kind of more regular.
Well, you've been busy with work.
I know,
and
but
work
so do
and
microdosing
work.
moms. They're busy too, with ballet lessons and soccer practices and stuff, like the
Yes.
article said.
Okay, then the step is do less.
Yeah.
You have to take time for leisure and not just watching TV, but taking rest.
Yeah. And
I
actually,
mean, that's what Sundays are for, right?
that's a danger sign. Probably for me, the more podcasts or TV I start feeding my brain, it's like a warning sign that I need socialization, because I'm starting to attach to maybe real people behind a microphone or fake people
Yes.
behind a screen. And I'm starting to develop relationships that I can actually be hurt by without any consequence to a real relationship.
Yeah.
And that I'm actually trying to fill a hole in my life with these artificial friendships. And that's a dangerous place to be in, that I've started to really try to reflect on. And
Yep.
it's hard to start reaching out to friends almost when you have been in a habit of not. So it's a reminder to me that I need to have a girls' night.
Yeah. Oddly enough, Pints with Aquinas was talking about that connection that you can have with people you don't know through podcasts.
Ah, Matt Fradd.
Yep.
The modern
it wasn't
Gandhi.
it wasn't Matt Fradd, it was his AV guy, which his name eludes me at the moment. He was the one that brought it up.
It's usually not Matt Fradd, isn't it?
You just don't like Matt Fradd.
Yeah, I hold a grudge, I guess. Not that I know anything about.
You don't
the
know
dude in
anything
real
about
life,
him,
but
no.
a couple of little things I hold a grudge about.
Okay. Well, on that note, hopefully you will enjoy listening to us, but hopefully are feeling like you're left out of a relationship with us. I don't know.
I know. That's interesting.
It's a little meta.
We're criticizing our own self, having little headless, bodiless voices in people's ears.
Right, and we're on a podcast.
So just go make a real friend, and then you can get rid of me.
Or you can tell them to listen to the podcast, and then they can, with you, talk about how we're ridiculous.
Yes.
And then you can email us at catholichitch@gmail.com and tell us all about it.
And then may the Lord guide and direct your journey.
Amen.